First, it's Immigration D-Day tomorrow, where legal net migration figures to Britain are expected to reach at least 700,000, more than doubling from pre-Brexit levels. Now, the record number would dwarf last year's previous high of 500,000, with a portion of this year's intake coming from 200,000 refugees from Ukraine. The Daily Telegraph suggests the recent spike comes from migration numbers simply being underestimated in recent years, which is perhaps even more concerning. The PM this week vowed to get tough, including by banning families of foreign students coming over to live in the UK. And he wrote in the Daily Telegraph today, "I have a very clear view on immigration. It must be legal, it must be controlled, it must be fair. And fundamentally, net migration needs to come down." Well, one man with a keen eye on Britain's migration headache is Richard Tice, leader of Reform UK. So, Richard Tice, are we now just an immigration nation? Is that what these numbers tomorrow released at 9:30 a.m. are going to prove?
These numbers will be the most shocking that the country has ever seen and will prove the great lie from Tory manifesto, Tory Prime Minister, 3-4 times in the last 13 years. The great lie of Boris's Brexit campaign with the referendum, take back control of our borders. The truth is, tomorrow's numbers, give or take, will be the size of Birmingham last year. It'll be the same or more this year, another Birmingham. This is completely unsustainable.
So is Rishi Sunak
at every single level?
Here?
Like all Tory Prime Ministers, he's all talk, he's all waffle, and this sort of latest sticking plaster will make no difference whatsoever.
Because
the truth is, it's completely out of control. They told us they would take back control of our borders and they would bring the numbers down. They deliberately opened the borders. They've created a total open border policy. And surprise, surprise, when the doors open, lots of people are coming here because for all the reasons, including the ease on which you can sign up for benefits and all sorts of other very generous perks and things.
Well, yeah, and I just doubt how seriously Rishi Sunak actually
He's
takes
not serious
it.
at all.
Because I don't know if you remember, a few days ago, when he was on the plane over to the G7 summit in Japan, he was asked by the reporters in this huddle, without his PR advisors able to script an answer for him, whether he cared about these record net migration figures. And actually, he didn't really seem to. He said, oh no, my focus is on illegal immigration, my focus is on stopping the boats. Now, what's happened over the last few days is clearly his advisors have said this is a political disaster, so he's toughened up his language,
Dan,
but it doesn't seem to come from his heart.
Because he's totally out of touch. He has no empathy, no understanding whatsoever. He's lost control of illegal immigration, which should be zero. He's completely, deliberately given up and created an open borders policy.
So what would you do to bring it down?
I've said very clearly, our policy is net zero immigration. Every year, about 400,000 people emigrate, and that should be the number that we allow
so
to
one
come
in,
into
one
the country.
out.
One in, one out. You could easily organise that.
I think that's a good idea.
We've got a record population. We've got a record number of people on out-of-work benefits. I tell you what, why don't we train our own people and get them back into work and the dignity?
Well, isn't it true that we're not even building enough houses for these new people? I think we built something like 200,000 houses.
We're building about 200,000 homes a year, which doesn't even look... We've got an affordable housing crisis. We've got a healthcare crisis.
Where are these people going to live?
Exactly. And
do they push Brits out of their homes?
Of course they do. So the price of housing to rent or buy is soaring. The whole thing's a catastrophe, not to mention the impact on the British culture, the British heritage, the British history, which is so important, and the British identity. All of this is a disaster.
I want to move on to talk about Gary Lineker, because this is the BBC's biggest star presenter. We have to, unfortunately, because what he's doing is so shocking, Richard. So he went over to collect this Amnesty International award from Italy. Now he's given a highly politicised interview with Channel 4 News tonight, the left-wing Channel 4 News, supporting the Just Stop Oil protesters. Watch this.
They do stuff knowing that they'll probably be locked up, and I kind of admire that in a way, and I know it angers a lot of people, but that's kind of what they want, because it's the only way it gets publicised, and it's the only reason we're talking about it now, and I think that's important. And I think if we manage to save this, save the human race from 50 years or 100 years' time, and we still exist, they'll look back on these. And they'll look back on people like that, and Greta Thunberg and people like that have made a real difference, and they might well be the heroes.
Give me
Richard,
a break.
you
What
had
a
your
prat.
head in your
He
hands
has not
watching
a
that.
clue what he's talking about. The man is a clown. He's not a great football commentator, in my view. He has no idea what he's talking about with regard to the climate debate. There is no climate emergency. There is no climate crisis. It's absolutely absurd what he's saying.
BBC is just
what they're
ignoring
doing,
this
they're
now, though.
deliberately scaring people and terrifying young people in the same way Boris Johnson's government deliberately terrified people with lockdowns. Why do you think we've got a mental health crisis? Clowns like that damaging people and talking nonsense and worrying people.
Still earning over £1 million a year, though, of our money.
If he wants to go into politics and get elected, fine. But the taxpayer
just
should
leave
not
the
be
BBC.
paying him. Fine.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be paying him to spout that garbage.
Totally. Leave the BBC like the other lefties did. John Sopel, Emily Maitlis. Just do not do it at the BBC. Speaking of ridiculous political figures, though, I'm sure you saw this yesterday from the Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey. But in case not, this is what he said when asked if a woman can have a penis.
Vast majority of people whose biological sex is a woman when they were birth, they feel they're women, so they get the same they feel their gender the same as at birth. But there's a very small number of people who don't feel like that.
So a woman can have a penis?
Well, quite clearly.
Quite clearly.
So we've now got
penis.
two leaders of major parties in this country, right, who think that women can have a penis. They are not fit to govern this country. And many, many millions of women are offended and feel deeply, deeply discriminated against. It's utterly appalling. Again, another man who's talking complete garbage. He knows it's not true, but he hasn't got the guts and the courage to tell the truth. Is that really the sort of leader we want running this country? I don't think so.
He's probably going to be the next Deputy Prime Minister, though, isn't he?
Well, let's hope not.
Very worrying times for the country.
I mean, look, the whole thing is just absurd. These people, they won't tell the truth. They won't be honest with the British people. And if they can't be honest about something as simple as that, what else are they not going to tell the truth about?